So that was me trying to get the IS started. Unfortunately, I think this engine might be about toast. After sitting so long after the last event where I crashed it, I think like the blown head gasket just set in, and I don't know. The thing doesn't want to start, doesn't want to stay running, so I don't know what's up with it. At this point, I couldn't really give a care. But anyways, today's video, we're going to be finishing transferring over the rest of the stuff over from the IS over to the TI. I decided to start with the engine mounts because I knew that was probably going to be one of the hardest bits to transfer over to the other car, because I have to transfer over the old engine mounts from that car over to this car, so I have to have like a bunch of jacks out. It's kind of just a big mess at this point. But I really wanted to show you something that I found on the TI. So I knew that the engine mounts were shot, but not this shot. I can literally, you won't be able to tell in video, but I can rock the engine back and forth with my hand. And I looked down underneath the car and I found something really interesting. So like, you look over here at the driver's side engine mount, that thing is pretty bad. Like, that's really bad. But then we move over here to the passenger side and it looks just as bad, if not worse. But I looked up here, that's part of the engine mount sitting on top of the arm that comes from the engine. Like, that's just not supposed to be there. Like, how do engine mounts get this bad? Like, I thought the engine mounts on the IS were bad to begin with, but that is just entirely another beast. But anyways, I'm gonna get the Condor Speed Shop engine mounts in the IS, and then I think we're gonna move on to the transmission mounts. I've already done a video on pretty much all this, so I'm probably not gonna go into everything again. But hopefully this time it'll be a bit easier, because last time I did the engine mounts on the IS, I did it in the snow. So I think this should be a bit more enjoyable. All right, engine mounts are done. I look like I've been through a war, but it's done. Took way longer than it needed to, but that's okay. Engine's sitting in the bay a hell of a lot better than it was before. Before, the engine was like sloughed over to the left because of that passenger side engine mount. Speaking of which, look at these things. This one's the passenger side. That's not supposed to look like that. This was the rubber piece that somehow got on top of the arm that comes from the engine. I don't even understand how that happens, because this somehow got up over the top of this while it was in the car, and that just doesn't compute in my brain. But I had a hell of a hard time getting the driver's side out, because as I was loosening the top nut on this decided to come off. But thankfully, I came up with a little bit of a trick. So the arm that comes from the engine obviously sits on top of this, but it doesn't come over to the edge all the way. And I noticed as this was spinning on here, these holes became just slightly visible, and there was just barely enough of this hole poking out to where I was able to stick this inside, and it butted up against the arm enough for me to be able to loosen the nut. But after I think probably like 2 hours of doing this, we finally have the engine mounts done. I still have some daylight left though, so I still want to try and knock out a couple things. We still have the short shifter to do, we still have the transmission mounts to do, and we still have the tie rods to do. I'm probably going to skip out on the tie rods today, but I think I still want to try and get the transmission mounts and the short shifter out of the way. So yeah, I'm going to try and bust those out real quick. Hey, nice. Hey, nice. Now that we have those out, I'm actually going to drop the transmission a little bit, and then I guess we'll get the short shifter in while we have the mounts out. We have a little bit of room. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye to the light up shift knob. Fuck me. Oh my god. Stupid ass doors, man. So one thing that I neglected to mention when I installed the short shifter last time, you want to make sure that the rod that goes in here is nice and lubed up, because first time I installed this, about 2 days after installing it and driving around a couple days, this thing started seizing up like crazy. So make sure you grease the rod that goes through here. Last time, I'm pretty sure I used this stuff. It's just white lithium grease, just super basic. You can pick it up at any local auto store. Oh, yes, sir. Oh, this shit's gonna look so good in here. Oh my god. Now I just gotta attach this shift linkage. Just like that. You got a short shifter. In gear actually feels a lot better than I was expecting, because with the stock shifter, it like moved around like crazy when it was in gear. But now, this feels a lot like the IS. Of course, I imagine this might even feel a little bit different because I don't have the transmission mounts in quite yet, but that's super nice. Oh my god. Oh my god. I guess I gotta get the transmission mounts in. One thing I really like about these Condor Speed Shop mounts is that instead of there being like a bolt in the mount just like as it is, you like the bolt and like the nut and everything are separate, so you can just slide these in super easy, and then you can just slide the bolt in. Makes install super easy. I mean, hell, I didn't even need to jack up the transmission, which is super nice because the jack is currently holding up the transmission on the IS. I love it. Now realistically, I totally could have just bought brand new mounts because these transmission mounts are like, I don't know, like 20, 30 bucks. But that's not how we're doing this. This is a budget build. I haven't paid for a single modification on this car yet, which is awesome. All right, let's get this second mount in. Whoop. Like butter. Like nicely melted butter. Nope, that's not my nut. Where's my nut? There's my nut. Boom. The transmission mounts are in. All right, it's the next day, and we're finally on the home stretch of swapping everything over from the IS to the TI. The last thing that we need to swap over is the Chelsea Denofa drift tie rods. All right, so to make sure I retain at least somewhat of the same alignment that was on the 318 IS, I'm gonna be taking a measurement of this tie rod. I'm gonna go from the end of the nut here just up to this little ridge right here, just so we can try and get roughly the same alignment. Of course, it's not gonna be exactly the same just because of like bushing wear compared to the two cars and stuff like that. All right, I got both the tie rods off. Now we can start tackling the TI. Thankfully, it looks like these boots are still in good condition, so I'm probably just gonna keep these ones on this car. Not gonna change out the tie rod ends or anything because they're still in good shape too. But yeah, let's get into this. And just like that, we got both tie rods in. So I ended up taking out about a 1/16 of an inch on either side because before I was running just under like 3/8 like toe out, which is probably a bit too much for this car. And so theoretically, I should be running about a 1/4 inch toe out right now. I feel like that'll still retain like a lot of the snappiness that I like in my car, but it won't be as drastic as it was before, so it'll be a bit nicer to drive on the street, you know? I'm definitely gonna have to get the car like actually aligned at some point, but just based on like a small like eyeball alignment right now, the car seems in pretty good shape. Probably the same, if not a little bit better before, because the alignment before was just absolute dog water, and like I was even surprised that I was able to drift it with the alignment that I had before. So I just took the TI out for a quick little drive now that I have everything buttoned up, and this thing feels insane now. Everything, like the throttle just feels so much more responsive. Like we didn't really change much in the front end, but the entire front end just feels so much more stiffer and just so much more like confidence inspiring. Like with the new tie rods, like the steering before, it felt all right, but it was a little spongy. But just with the tie rods, like everything feels way more snappy, way more direct. And this thing really, it almost feels better than the IS now, which is pretty surprising to me. But just based on like the quick loop around the block, I am super happy. The car, I think, is gonna feel a hell of a lot better when we go to the track now. But you know, that does it. Everything that was on the IS before that I could swap over to the TI is now swapped over. So now we could just start buying new parts. We could start doing a bunch of other things. I think one of the first things that I'm going to be doing is stiffening up the rear end on the car, getting new bushings for the rear subframe, adjustable rear bushings for the rear trailing arms, just so I can start to dial in the alignment a little bit better to my liking. But yeah, this car's nuts. This car is becoming better and better by the day, and I honestly can't wait to see where this thing goes. I know I've been saying that every video, but just like everything I do to the car, like the more experience I have with this car, the more and more I get excited to keep doing stuff to it. I'll tell you what though, the entire process of swapping everything over from the IS to TI has been a bit of a pain, not gonna lie, because literally everything that I've done, that I've swapped over, I've had to do the removal and installation twice essentially, because I'm still trying to keep the IS in a place where it can still be moved and still potentially be driven like even small distances, even though the engine doesn't really want to start. I still want it to be kind of complete, you know, because I just don't want this old like junker just sitting in front of my house. For all the stuff I installed in this video, I've already made videos in the past installing it all on the IS, so if you want to go back and watch those videos, I'll put all the links to those videos down in the description. I've got something a little bit different in store for next video, so keep your eyes out for the next video, but I think that's gonna do it for this video, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope y'all have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next one.